So this is what you're going to see when you open Adobe Premiere Pro. And these are what we are going to call workspaces. So what we see right now, this is a workspace. And it might actually be, you might be over here on this learning workspace, which is totally fine. All of these up here at the top in this top little bar, these are workspaces. So we've got the learning one. Adobe comes with a couple of tutorials off here to the left if you want to watch those, and a couple of other windows that will look pretty familiar once we get started. Assembly, this is the workspace where you would use to assemble timelines and sequences. The editing workspace is the main one that we are going to use in all of our tutorials. This is the easiest one to use, and it's the one that encompasses pretty much everything that we're going to need to do. For color correcting, you could click on the color workspace. If you want to add effects into your project, you can click on the effects workspace. If you want to do some audio editing, you can click on the audio workspace. Then if you want to do any graphics editing, you can open that workspace and you can see there it'll preload some stuff over here to the right. And then if you have an Adobe account and you want to save color palettes or other things, other projects via the cloud, you can do that here in the library section. And you can see I've got some color palettes and some other stuff. Let's go back to this editing workspace. As you select a window, you can see it will get highlighted with a little blue box. And you can see I've got the source tab selected. Now, when I have some footage in the project eventually, you will see this populate with that footage. The effects control panel, those are going to give us access to any of the effects that we put on clips, in addition to basic things like the scale and the rotation and even the transparency. And then we've got the audio clip mixer. We're going to have some audio functions up there. And then the metadata one here is if you wanted to add in any metadata for your project or for these individual clips once we bring them in. And moving over to the right, you can see the program monitor is here, or the program window. And there's a bunch of tools and play functions. As you mouse over those, you can see what each of those are. They're all grayed out right now because we don't have any footage to bring in. But the program monitor is where we're going to see our semi-final product. So as we're editing videos, we're going to watch them in the program monitor, and that's essentially going to be what the people see, what our audience sees after the video is finished. And moving down here into the timeline window, this is where we're going to kind of arrange all of the pieces in time. So off to the left here, this is going to be 0 seconds, and over here on the right hand side is going to be as long as your project needs to be. So if you've got a 10-second video, it will start over here at 0 seconds and it will end over here on the right at 10 seconds. And you're going to edit all of your clips down here to play, 1 second or 5 seconds or 8 seconds or whatever. All of those are going to get edited down here. Moving to the left a little bit, you've got your tool panel. Now, as you mouse over any of these, you can see what they are. You can click on them, and these are going to give us access to a lot of really powerful tools in Adobe Premiere that we can use to edit stuff either here down on our timeline or here up in our program window. And we'll get into more of that. If you see a little bitty arrow in the bottom right-hand side of any of these tools, that means you can click on it and you have access to additional tools. So if there's something that you're used to seeing and it's not showing up, it's probably just gotten selected into something else. And finally, we have got our project window. Now, this is where we're going to import or bring in all of our footage and clips and assets and photos and graphics and music and everything else that we're going to need to edit. Those are going to get brought into here, into the project folder. Here in the Media Browser tab, we could browse our computer to find the clips that we want and bring those in. Up here in Libraries, we've got a kind of a smaller panel access to the same Libraries window that we had earlier. Here under Info, the information about whatever clip you have selected is going to show up here. So duration, all of these other things, those are going to be here. This effects window is going to be really nice. You're going to have access to all of these effects here in Adobe Premiere, and there's a lot of them. They'll show previews of them. We'll get into that. We'll have a whole lesson on just effects. And then markers, if you want to make markers within your sequence, down here on your timeline, you can do so. And those are just going to give you notes. So as you're editing, you can put a marker in so you know to put a graphic there later, or you know to make an edit at a certain spot later. And those are really helpful and powerful. And here in the History tab, all of the things that you do in Adobe Premiere Pro are going to show up here. So instead of hitting Command Z or Control Z to undo a function that you maybe did like 6 times ago, you can go into this list, you can select the one that you want and delete it, undoing something that you maybe did 3 or 4 minutes ago. And that's a really powerful tool. So the last thing I want to cover before we end this video is that if your workspace doesn't look like how you remember it, or it looks a little funky, don't sweat it. All you have to do is go up to this window and go back to editing or whichever one you are in. You can also go up here to Window, Workspaces, and you will find all of these here as well. So there's even one for titles, there's logging, there's production. I'm not even sure what that one does. And you could reset to a saved layout, or you could save a new workspace if you've got maybe a couple of monitors and you like having things set out in a certain way. So there you have it, folks. That is how you open Adobe Premiere Pro, and there's a little bit of information about the workspaces and getting around the interface. Now, if you have any questions about that, please leave those in the comment section below. Thanks so very much, and we'll see you in the next video.